Everyone, hope you're all doing well. I am jumping on here with Adriana from Let's Get Your Shift Together to talk about the truth about healing. So, just for those who are coming on for the first time, I have talked a lot about healing as a holistic healing coach and how that really is a very protracted thing which gets people to better understand their own physiology and also getting them back in contact with themselves. And I think often at times, I'll just bring Adriana on board, we get a lot of confusion about what healing actually is because there's a lot of noise about what it actually involves. So without further ado, we'll discuss this. Hey Peter, hope you're doing well. Adriana, hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very good. It's morning, I'm self-isolating, I'm healing. Hashtag self-care done right.
Amazing.
Yeah, do you not want to be spreading COVID around?
Oh,
So,
you have it?
not yet. I
Oh,
don't think so.
oh, you may have been exposed.
Yeah,
Oh no.
it was a 30th birthday present in disguise. Stay home, don't do anything. I was like,
Oh, happy birthday.
I know, right? The
That's
universe
awful.
works in mysterious ways.
Oh
So,
my God.
anyways,
My 30th sucked too, so it's like one of those things. It's like a year that has to suck.
why
Oh,
us?
right? Oh.
Well, anyways, whilst we're getting out of the collective suckage, it'd be great to hear from my audience, who are you, what do you do, and how you got to be where you are.
So, hi everyone. My name is Adriana Bucci. I am in Toronto, Canada, and I'm a life coach who helps survivors of narcissistic abuse to heal, set boundaries, live life on their own terms, all of that fun stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I answer everything that you asked, I think. Yeah,
I think that's
that's
a
what I
pretty
do
good
and who I am.
nutshell.
Yeah.
Before the next chapter of your life starts.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that was perfect. So for your audience, yeah, my name is Ken. I am a holistic healing coach helping at the moment high achievers to better understand why they attract emotionally unavailable partners and how they can start attracting healthy, committed partners. Because, like I said recently in one of my posts, I think many of us not really connecting with ourselves, with our core selves, and getting back into understanding why we're constantly choosing the same damn people in our lives because we haven't done any healing on ourselves. We're just repeating the same bloody patterns. So, with that in mind, I'd love to hear from you. You know, I think obviously you being someone who's gone through a massive healing journey from chronic pain to what you're doing right now, I think there's a lot of noise in the air when it comes to healing, what it actually involves. It's not very like one dimensional, and it's certainly not just like, you know, manifestation like butterflies and unicorns and rainbows. You know, how would you best define healing in terms of the experiences you've gone from when you were at your rock bottom to where you are now?
Honestly, you're literally performing an emotional exorcism on yourself when you're healing. Like, it is not for the faint of heart, but if you are in enough pain where it's like, okay, I have tried everything already to heal, I'm gonna try whatever it takes at this point, then you just do it because you don't really have a choice at that point. So that's pretty much where I was at. And we tend to think of healing journeys as like, oh, bubble baths and self-care and
Mm-hmm.
just get my chakras aligned and, a little chakras tune up and then we're good to go. But that is so not how it works at all. And there's no amount of like woo woo or positive thinking that will make you heal if you don't actually dig into that subconscious and do the work. And that's what the healing is really all about. So, painful memories will come up when you're healing, but you have to process that pain. And that's basically where the healing happens. And, you have to be ready to literally just transform your life because that's what's going to happen. Because if the pain of the patterns and behaviors that your life has been up until the point that you're at, when it's like, hey, I guess I should heal, if you
Mm.
want to change that, you have to do something like very, very different. And it's going to take a little bit more than just like meditating here and there and, you know, positive affirmations here and there. Like you actually have to commit every single day to just like seeing what demons are in there in your mind.
I agree. I agree. I don't know about you, but I feel like for me, pain was probably the constant thing that reminded me I'm not feeling good. And I'm not talking like I had a sore shoulder. I mean, like, I remember for me, my rock bottom was I was just heartbroken. I had like a really, intense 1 month experience with a guy who was just like amazing for me at the time. In hindsight, completely emotionally unavailable. But 6 months of pain off the back of that 1 month experience, I was just trying to cure myself by dating other people at the time. I was trying to just sink myself into work and to distract myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was operating on this faulty logic of like, oh, well, if I just put up with this, maybe I'll get my ex back. Maybe my job will finally appreciate all the work that I do. Maybe I'll finally realize that it's worth my time to be doing this. When I got to a point when I was on a holiday in Europe and I actually had to sit with my thoughts and feelings in isolation, when I realized what a bunch of crap I've been carrying around, and how much easier would it be if I just let go of all of that? If I just was like, no, I don't want my ex back. No, this job sucks. No, my family relationship's really crap and I need to work on that or get the hell out. And how many friends have I got that are just not healthy and supportive for me? And I think the problem is that many of us, you know, we don't get to that rock bottom and we just continue operating as per normal, distracting ourselves. And I think all it takes is for us to just be like, I've had enough. I am done with this, whatever belief is keeping me stuck here. And making that change, I'm not going to lie, as you said, is not for the faint of heart. And it's tough because you sort of like peel back the layer of things and you're like, man, my life needs work. Let's go. But where do we start? It's hard work.
Yeah, 100%. We're doing such a great job of selling healing, eh? And that's the thing, the stuff that actually works, like you cannot market. You cannot market this whatsoever. It's literally like you're gonna be changing your life. It's gonna suck a lot while you're
In the
going through
beginning.
it. In the beginning, exactly. But then things are gonna be a lot better. But it's gonna suck at first, like a lot, because you don't want to, like, no one wants to think that like they're in their own way, right? And especially if you're
No.
a survivor of narcissistic abuse, like none of that shit was ever your fault. So
No.
you're kind of paying the consequences of other people's actions because you're the one who's traumatized from the crap that they did to you. So it's almost like unfair that you have to do the inner work, where it's like, well, I didn't traumatize myself, so I shouldn't have to do this work. Like that was totally something that I went through my mind when I was, having to heal. But you have to come to a point where it's like you need to unlearn all the shit that you were made to believe about yourself and like how the world works and like the narcissist's narrative and all the toxic people around there, their narratives and all that. And that does require self-reflection. So you have to self-reflect to the point where you're self-reflecting and then releasing repressed emotions that are underneath all of the crap that you have been through.
Yeah, 100%. Self-reflection is definitely what I think the gateway to a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also just realizing that it's all very good and well that your thoughts are coming in and out, they're telling you things, and they're obviously trying to keep you safe. When we're in survival mode, in like that sympathetic fight or flight state, our brain is probably the only thing that's operating at 120% efficiency, and it does what it does best, telling you, that if you do this, there's going to be disaster. If you suddenly work on yourself, that, everyone's going to hate you, and that especially if you're in a narcissistic relationship, there are very understandable fears, and I'm not just saying like a family relationship, I'm talking like in a romantic relationship, especially where fear of death, I think, is very high for a lot of people and often understated. And I think there's also the fear of just like being judged by others, like, oh, how did I get myself into an abusive relationship? How did I get this, situation to happen? Or like, I feel guilty for leaving them. I can help them. I can save them. I can, do whatever magic to improve their life down the line. And I don't say that dismissively. I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think we all
Oh yeah.
um, with a modicum of empathy, think that we can obviously change people. But then when we realize that our brain's role is actually causing us to keep stuck, and we look at it more objectively, being like, okay, I am in so much physical pain. I need to reconnect my brain to my body to actually move me through the muck and start also plowing out some of these thoughts and ideas that just aren't serving me anymore because it's just keeping me stuck. And that's hard work.
Right. It is very, very hard work. And it will eventually manifest physically if it's not already manifesting physically. So,
Mm.
that's the mind body connection at play right there. And it really does boil down to a fear of death because we are so terrified of our repressed emotions because we literally unconsciously believe we're going to die from feeling that emotion. And it starts from childhood. So if you've grown up with emotionally unavailable parents, or even well-meaning parents who just sort of like dismissed your emotions or whatever the case may be, could even be like a teacher that gave you this unconscious belief. But the way the kid brain translates it is that, okay, so if I'm sad or upset or whatever, it is making my mother really angry with me. If she's angry with me, she's not going to love me anymore. If she doesn't love me anymore, I will die. And that's literally how the kid brain interprets it. So then you go through life repressing your emotions, and toxic people thrive off of people repressing their emotions because, things like anger, they're huge motivators. We think of anger as like this horrible thing where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna like start beating people up or like lose control completely and all that. But it's like, no, like, unless something's actually wrong with you, that's not what's gonna happen. Um, it's more just a feeling, it's an emotion, but you have to feel it in your body. But if you've been repressing it for decades and decades and decades, you're going to feel something physically in your body. You're going to have some sort of chronic pain or like IBS or some kind of weird syndrome or mind body manifestation where you're going to the doctor, but nothing's wrong with you. There's no like, cancers or recent fractures or anything like that. That is the mind body syndrome and connection.
Yeah. And actually, I just want to give an example of what you just
Hmm.
described with mind body connection because I feel like this will really illustrate the difference between healing and not healing.
Right.
I know someone who was in a very malignant, abusive, narcissistic relationship. And they are someone who's fortunately out of that situation. That happened maybe 5 years ago. But they honestly believe that because of the abuse that they had, they've since had two carcinoids in their pancreas and one, I think, in their intestine.
Oh my God.
And they recently had them cut out at the age of 27. And I share this story not to be like, oh, well, narcissists cause cancer, but to say this person, for a bit of a personality context, is a go-go goer, very big high achiever, very alpha, very masculine energy, which means that they're not one to really sit with their emotions. But they also, interestingly enough, did like the Miracle Morning, mindfulness, Eckhart Tolle, gratitude journaling, and all this sort of stuff, but not sitting with the other spectrum of the
Hmm.
emotions. And the reason I'm bringing awareness to this is because I think many of us who've been groomed in a emotionally unavailable household where we've had a lot of conditional love, we've become such big high achievers. And as a consequence, when we constantly have this narrative of I'm not good enough, watch the burnout kick in, along with a bunch of other symptoms too. And in going back to this example, the point that I really wanted to illustrate is that it is no joke. Like the autoimmune problems people can have by not actually working through the repressed emotions that they have in their body can be severe. And I think that we often do this to ourselves because we think that, it's not relevant to go back there. It's scary to go back there. Fair enough. Child brain thinks we're going to die. And I think also we'd like to take the mindfulness, the gratitude journaling, the miracle morning stuff because, with all due respect, it's light and easy and it's fluffy.
Exactly. I could not agree more. And this is such an important thing to talk about because that is how healing is marketed. that it's this light and fluffy, miracle morning, whatever, even just the
Mm.
name of it, like I don't even know if I rolled my eyes, but just the hearing the name, it's just like, okay, no, like, because when you have gone through all that kind of trauma, it's like, no, the morning's not a freaking miracle at all. It's another day of the shit show. So definitely, it's so much easier to think like, okay, yeah, I'll try this miracle morning thing and see what happens and do these positive affirmations. And that's all fine and dandy, and that can help to an extent. But to actually create that lifelong lasting change, you have to release the repressed stuff, because if you start out your healing journey and you believe that you're a worthless piece of shit because this is what your parents told you all of your life, and this is what all of your significant others have told you all of your life, and maybe the people around you now aren't necessarily saying that to you, but it's only a matter of time until they say that, and just reaffirm what a piece of shit you are, but maybe they're just healthy people. um, and you start doing affirmations and you're like in the mirror doing it and like, I love myself, I'm a wonderful person, you're gonna start like your bullshit detector is gonna go off and it's gonna be like, no, this is so stupid, like I don't believe this. And then like you've accomplished nothing, but maybe you've just wasted like 10 minutes every morning just like saying this crap to yourself in the mirror, and you don't believe it, and you still don't believe it because you can't believe it until you examine those feelings of worthlessness and release those. Then that'll make space for you to believe that you are a good person.
I don't know. I don't know. Have you ever given any of your clients and said to them, go in front of a mirror and say, "I love yourself"? Because I'm not saying this out of a place of self-deprecation. I truly do love myself, but I have never said that to any of my clients.
No, no. I mean, it's an exercise in one of my modules in my program, but like way later. Way later, like we do the affirmation stuff just to combine everything. But no, I've never ever told anybody like, start with this.
It will solve all your problems.
Exactly. Like this is the key to healing right here. Just telling yourself in the mirror that you're a wonderful person. No,
No. It's
no.
so funny though, because I mean, okay, I'm about to go serious, so let me just. What I was gonna say is like I think that flies in the face of trauma as well. And for people who may not understand my definition of trauma, I think of it as like a moment when your body was absolutely terrified and your brain reacted to something where it was like, oh God, if this happens to me, I'm going to die. And as a consequence, it developed behavior to protect itself. So classic example, high achieving. I think many people think, oh, well, if you're a high achiever, you're genetically gifted, an intelligent person. It's like, no, you're just protecting yourself because
Exactly.
you probably saw someone in the family who wasn't doing well when they didn't obey mummy and daddy. And as a consequence, you learned that in order to get love, you had to work hard for success. And so what do? You keep overachieving and you're overworking. But to a more extreme example, I have met people, and this is also covered in The Body Keeps the Score, who have become like bodybuilders, professional like athletes, because they suffered molestation and rape at a very, very young age. They have a lot of feelings of low self-worth, and they create this story in their head. Sometimes I'll even use the trauma itself as a story, being like, oh, and I conquered this trauma and I'm now this physically gifted athlete, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, your trauma is literally guiding your life in this case. And it's not to dismiss them. It's just to say that we underestimate how much pain we often continue to manifest by running these stories and loops. And I think real healing is actually accepting, going back to what you're saying, like, I am worthy. Like, I am not a piece of shit because I was hurt at a young age when I couldn't protect myself. That's got nothing to do with me. In fact, that was just a freak accident that happened. And I've overprotected myself by transforming into this person who thinks that they need to seek significance in my life because that will somehow make me feel worthy to people who didn't make me feel worthy at a young time. And it can be hard to accept that because if that's the narrative we've been running on for a very long time, giving up the belief that, who we are is because of trauma, very hard.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It is so hard. And it's hard to even accept that that's trauma. right? Because when you hear the word trauma, you think like, okay, like I didn't grow up in a war zone, so I don't have trauma. Like that was the first thing I thought of when it was suggested to me that I had trauma. And I was like, no, I just had a fucked up mother, but that's not trauma.
That was a war zone.
Yeah, exactly. That was the war zone. And that's absolutely trauma, which no one really sees it that way. And until, this just becomes more of like an accepted thing that that's totally trauma. Like maybe it's not capital T trauma, but it's like a lowercase t trauma. And it's still valid. And just because shit's going down in other parts of the world, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve to heal from whatever you went through just because it isn't as bad as like all the other stuff that's like actually life threatening.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. And on that note, I would like to also say to anyone, if they hear that voice which in their head that says to them, oh, well, what you went through was nowhere near as bad as what I went through in my childhood. I would like everyone to take a collective pause moment and realize that is not your voice. That is probably someone who is very toxic in your life. Go get rid of them now and watch your life improve.
hmm exactly. Easier said than done, but
Easier said than
totally.
done. I
Yeah.
agree. I think we get into comparison syndrome when it comes to that sort of stuff too. Like our mind wants to keep us protected and being like, oh, well, I haven't suffered like soldiers suffered. I haven't suffered like my mother suffered. And it's just like, no, you probably haven't. But you know what? Your trauma is still valid. And until you reconcile that and make peace with it, you're just going to be continuing to reenact the same patterns of behavior.
Exactly. Exactly. And like, just in a nutshell, really, any pattern of behavior that you want to change, that you can't change, it's probably linked to trauma. And there's going to have to be some emotional work that you need to do in order to be able to change it. But that does require you sitting down with yourself and actually doing the work and not miracle morning or whatever.
No, I agree. Actually, there's something great about your story, Adriana, that I remember was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in your biography have gone into detail about how it was only until you were dating men where you Googled their behavior and were like, oh, narcissism. And then that's sort of when the whole world exploded and you were like, oh my God, like I see it everywhere. I see the patterns. One of the most profound healing or acceptance things that I found, and I'm not sure if this was the same with you, but was realizing the deep link between the problems we're facing now with what we experienced growing up. And I wonder if you can touch on that, like how that sort of really helped you, take the necessary steps to where you are now. Because I found like the minute that I started seeing the patterns between childhood and who I am now, that's when everything became clear. And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
so much dysfunction that I can get rid of now.
Yeah. Well, I didn't make that connection until the chronic pain stuff started to go down. So, yeah, you're correct about my story. I definitely had no idea about narcissistic abuse until I was dating, and I had dated more narcissists than I'm proud to admit that I've dated in the past. But happily married now to a normal person. They exist. They're out there. Woohoo! So do not give up hope, but please like take a year off of dating. Anybody listening to this, like take time for yourself to like really not get back into that pattern because it will repeat. But yeah, it was a 5-monther. It was like a really quick relationship. But it was like the most confusing. So that's what got me to start Googling. And then that's when I went down this rabbit hole and I saw, oh my gosh, I have a narcissistic mother too. So I quickly went back into denial about my mother, but I really understood at that point, like what the signs were, what the red flags were, and all that stuff. So, I did like, I can't remember if I told you, but I did like human experiments where not like that bad, but I literally went on a bunch of first dates because, in this day and age, you can do that.
You
And I
can.
tried to see if I could detect the narcissists right away.
What?
Yeah, I know.
So wait. You acted because I would. Oh God, did you actively look for red flags on the first few dates? Oh wow, you would have seen them everywhere.
Oh yeah, I saw them everywhere, and I was not interested in dating anybody seriously. I just wanted to see if I could figure out what the red flags were.
Oh, you would have found them.
Oh, I found them. Oh, yeah. So then I knew what to look out for. And then by the last date, where like the guy, he was just such a disgusting, he was awful. Like literally, he even told me that like, so we went for coffee, and because of women's rights, it's insulting for him to pay the $2 for my coffee. I know. It was like such a ridiculous date. And then like just the topics that he would bring up was just absurd. So then after that date, I was like, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. Um, yeah. And then
Research
I
done.
really, sorry?
Research done.
Yeah, exactly. My research was done. I figured it out. And like, with like follow-ups with like other ones, I would definitely like behave certain ways just to see if I could like get a narcissistic response to see what would happen. And I was right every time. So I trusted myself by then to like figure out that, okay, I will not ever get involved with another narcissist because I know exactly what to look out for.
Beautiful.
And then, yeah, I found my husband shortly thereafter. So that worked out. But I didn't start the actual healing until I had so much chronic pain to the point where like I was rock bottom. So I had TMJ dysfunction, I had carpal tunnel, neck pain, migraines, you name it. I had it. It was a shit show, tendonitis. And then I got shingles in my mouth. I got trigeminal neuralgia from that. That was a shit show. And that's when I stumbled upon the mind body connection. That's when I really started to make those connections on why my life was the way it was compared to how I was raised, because I was still struggling in other aspects and relationships of my life with narcissistic people. So it wasn't like I had figured out like the dating aspect of it and the significant other aspect of it. So I managed to dodge that altogether, but I was still in a very toxic workplace, only to go into another toxic workplace right after. And like it was just a pattern. And it wasn't until I really started to do the work that I realized like, oh my gosh, this is also why I keep getting jobs like this too,
Mm.
and this is why I have friends like this too. So, I had to cut a lot of people off. It was a pretty lonely road, but it was worth it 100%. And when you're at that point, when you just start the healing journey, it can be really scary to think of like, well, what's gonna like, so many things are going to be different. What if I end up like cutting so many people out of my life? I don't want to do that. I don't want to heal anymore. But am I in enough pain that I need to make this change? I guess so. So let's just see what happens. And that's the thing with healing. Don't think about like the end result. Just think about like what you can do right now to do a little bit of that work and then let it unfold as it unfolds.
Mm. I love that. I love that. I wonder if you can relate to this because this is often something I see with my clients who are about to hit that breakthrough moment is there's a real disconnection between mind and body.
Yeah.
So the mind is freaking out being like, oh, if I do this change, this bad thing will happen. I can't do this because it's just too hard for me right now. But the body is like, I am in so much physical discomfort that I need this. Like, this is just not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a client who had a nervous breakdown recently, and I know he's also suffered narcissistic abuse, and he's a very big hard worker, high achiever. And I actually said to him, you're in this really beautiful space right now where things are going to be coming up for you, and you can really just self-reflect on this. And as he did, he actually broke down into tears and was like, I just feel like I'm running out of time. Like, I feel like I'm constantly trying to prove myself, constantly trying to compete with other people who've hurt me in the past. And it just makes me tired. Like, all this attention with fame, with competition. And it was really beautiful. He just went on to say, like, I just want to take the rest of the year off. But then his mind switched in and was just like, oh, but if I do that, then I'm going to miss out on all this other stuff. And I said to him, okay, great. See what you just did there? That was beautiful. Your mind and your body are completely disconnected. So now what's important is to reconcile the two to help you go forward. And what he said, which I thought was an amazing breakthrough all by himself a week later, was I actually am starting to leave my body like guide me through this now to help me prioritize rest, to actually focus on choosing things that are less stressful. And I want to make it very clear for everyone, his life hasn't suddenly like changed overnight. Like, he hasn't got to that stage. But the significance of this of just starting is that it's scary at first. Your mind's probably going to still be freaking out, being like, shit, what are we doing? But it's all about letting your body guide your actions, because if you take those baby steps each day to, you know, your healing journey, it helps in so many ways. And I think that we're so caught up worrying about consequences that the real consequence is what we actually have right now. Like, we don't want to be getting to, you know, like your experiences with chronic pain, nervous breakdowns. This guy had like near heart attack situations just a few weeks ago. And I mean, it's just because our mind is just, you know, operating out of that self-protection, and we need to allow ourselves to go, is that serving us right now? Most of the
Yeah,
time, no.
exactly. And you're so right. They are already living the consequence, right? So it's like you think that healing is going to have consequences, but like, no, like you're literally in the consequence right now. Like this pain that you're feeling right now is the consequence of not healing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you might as well just get started because you're going to have to do it anyways. You can
Yep.
wait till you're in more pain. You can wait for a few more nervous breakdowns if you want to, but that's going to be you're running out of time.
I agree. I agree. I think, and it's interesting as a coach, like the question that I think always bubbles to mind is, how much suffering are you willing to take right now to stay with what you have right now? And is what you have right now any different from what you had a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? Answer is mostly no.
Exactly. And doing the work is not necessarily suffering. It's hard, it's painful, but once you actually start to do it, you realize that it's not as painful as like where you're at right now and anticipating how much pain it's going to be. Because like it's the whole thing with repressed emotions. Like you hype it up and it's like, well, I don't want to feel this feeling. It's going to be horrible. But once you actually do it and then you come out of it on the other side and you allowed the emotion and you like let yourself sit with it and you processed it and you realize, oh my gosh, this really does only take a few minutes. It's
Mm,
like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. I do feel a little bit better. Cool. But
I
you have to
agree.
get out of your own way, kind of, or you have to at least like do it scared. Just do it scared and just keep reminding yourself, I'm not going to die. Because that just, it sounds so dramatic, but you're
Mm.
not going to die.
I want to touch on that because that is something I completely forgot about and I thought was really relevant. I remember when I started rage journaling off the back of our stuff together,
Yeah.
the thing that got me to click was when I reminded myself, now this is a powerful affirmation. I don't usually give affirmations to my clients, but this one, oh, bomb. I am safe.
Yeah.
I have never had a more powerful anti-anxiety affirmation than that one. To give an example, I found that I had a lot of resistance to sleep. And when I looked deep and reflected, I'm like, why the hell do I procrastinate sleep? I realized, oh shit, I'm scared of dying in my sleep. And there were a whole host of like reasons for that. But when I got to that core and I started like building up an argument as to why I'm actually very, very safe to sleep, and I kept repeating that to myself and writing it down, I love it. I just go to bed now and I've just dropped to sleep and it's amazing. And I'm obviously not dying. It's great. But I bring this up because I think that so much of, you know, this healing process is actually reminding our subconscious mind it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine. And it's really quite powerful because it calms your central nervous system down, especially if you're doing like, you know, deep breath work and other techniques to soothe that too. But if you're saying that to your body, you're not just doing the miracle morning, the mindfulness, the gratitude journaling, which yes, it has its place, but this stuff, along with like rage journaling, where you're getting the muck up and you're actually allowing your body to feel like it can go back to that rest and digest state, that's healing
Mm-hmm.
because you're no longer operating with cortisol, serotonin, like flooding your system. You're able to just go back to that state of rest and digest where your body is able to operate at a much better level. And, you know, that's when, in my area, you actually start vibing with healthy, secure people because you can feel the disconnection in the people who you were originally hanging out with who were operating at a crazy wavelength because they were so stressed out. That's the chemistry most people chase. They think, oh, you know, we had such amazing chemistry. It's like, no, you both had dysregulated nervous systems, had nothing to do with chemistry.
Exactly. Exactly. And just to, piggyback off of that point, that like that nervous system activation, it's activated because unconsciously you think you're going to die. So, the trauma bonds that come up when you meet a narcissist, like that is literally like, if I leave this person, I'm going to die. It's not safe, right? Because those feelings are there and all that kind of stuff, but it's only because you're used to that sort of trauma bond feeling. So if there's ever butterflies or anything like that, take that as a red flag, because that's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a really bad sign. And then, we're told that, oh, there has to be chemistry and butterflies and all that kind of stuff, but like no, that's actually not how any of it actually works. It's like you just have to, I'm really oversimplifying it here, but healing really is just like coming to terms with your mortality in a way,
Yep.
like in just a very oversimplified way. Because it's like you just have to remind yourself, I'm not going to die. And it's safe. I am safe. That is a very, like, that's the most powerful affirmation ever. And just reminding yourself that you're safe. Well, safe from what? Why do I think I'm going to die? Oh, because
Mm-hmm.
that belief came to like be when I was a kid, and all of this bullshit that was beyond my control was happening to me. So it's almost like you have to sort out your fear of death.
Yeah. And that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I
No one
think,
wants to do that or think about it.
no. And to circle back to a joke you made at the beginning, we're so unsexy with all of this discussion of healing.
I know.
Think about death. That's how you
Welcome
heal.
to this live, everyone. We're all gonna die, and it's fine.
But you're so right though, like the minute you kind of like come to that acceptance and you just kind of, not like, oh, we're all gonna die, but maybe just like the acceptance of like that we're not gonna die right now.
Exactly.
That's the
That's
real
the
path.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. But you might if you stay in this shit show environment, which is terrible for you too. Like, you know, when I'm not sure if you've had clients like this or you've even experienced this too. Like, you know, when some people are at their rock bottom and they just go, I hate myself. Like, why do I keep getting myself into these situations? You know, often, now this is getting into the woo, but here we go. That is actually a very dangerous psychological place to be because as you're saying that, you're just like, and you're just so discontent with yourself. Oh my God, your thoughts will, will start to manifest in your body because I've seen people have like crazy, like nocebo effects, the opposite of placebo for
Yeah.
anyone wondering, where their body starts to shut down in crazy ways because they think, oh crap, like my life sucks. Why am I unlovable? Why am I unworthy? And then, they end up often having severe like issues off the back of that too, because their brain is constantly just regurgitating these really dangerous things. Like I know The Secret is very much like the land of the woo-woo, but like there is real reason to be mindful of some of the stuff that you have to say about yourself because it can and will impact your body.
Yeah. 100%. And, the thing is, like, with that woo woo stuff too, you have to also be careful of falling into that trap of like, well, now I'm afraid of thinking,
Mm.
right? Because if it is true that like, there has to be an intention behind the thought, right? For it to like be manifested or whatever. But if it's just like this belief that you have for however long it's been, probably decades, because that's been the narrative that like people have been drilling into you from day one, that is not going to manifest because it's already there, right? Like it's important to like spit those thoughts out like into rage journaling or whatever the case may be, whichever way you want to process, but like process the emotion underneath that feeling of I am worthless and I'm a piece of shit. Because it's important to like also recognize that just because you're, releasing that and letting yourself feel it, it doesn't mean you're going to manifest it at the
Mm.
same time, right? But it does manifest physically in a way because your mind and body are the same thing, but you know, we tend to think they're two completely different things. And then when you get all the chronic pain or those like weird symptoms and all that stuff, that's literally a reflection of the emotions that are repressed and the crap that's on your mind.
Yep.
So you have to like release that in order to heal. And they don't tell you that in The Secret.
There is, yeah, it's interesting. I was saying to some of my mates, because I'm reading it now at the moment for the first time. Look at me go, self-development 101. There is an element of wisdom to it, despite the language that's used, which is, it's very oversimplified. But in therapy, we always say your thoughts control your actions. So makes sense. Get excited by something, find something that you enjoy. You're more likely to take action on it. Like, that's logical. I think that sometimes though we just get too much, like we get too caught up in the whole like overthinking it process, or it's used, as we discussed last time, in the toxic positivity sense. It's like only positive thoughts only. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. But now that we've effectively demystified, desexified healing, I'd love to hear, like, you know, there is obviously benefits to doing this. We didn't just put ourselves through this shit so that way we would, like, you know, complain about it on an Instagram live. Like, I mean, for you, Adriana, like, you know, what would you say in terms of being the benefits of this wild roller coaster ride that we call healing for you?
Oh my God, everything. Like, I don't have chronic pain anymore, so that's a huge benefit. And I don't have shitty people in my life anymore, so that's a huge benefit. And these are even people that I didn't think were shitty back before I started my healing journey. But, you know, it took that healing journey for me to see. And yeah, it was a little bit of a lonely road, but now that has created space for like more amazing people in my life. And, you know, I have even more solid friendships now than I did back then, because I put myself through all of this healing stuff. And, you know, it's one of those things where the benefits, there's no negatives really of healing when you think about it. The only negative is that we want to assume that it's going to be like a fun ride, but it's not. So, I mean, I guess that's the negative, because it's really not a fun ride, but everything else about it is freaking amazing. Like, why wouldn't you want to live a pain-free life? Why wouldn't you want to have your life where you're not surrounded by narcissists and toxic people, and you have solid boundaries? And if someone doesn't respect your boundaries, you don't respect them, rather than just continuing that loop and trying to just make everybody happy and keep the peace with everybody, and sacrificing your mental health and your sanity and suffering physically because you're not releasing any of those emotions because nobody told you what to do with your emotions. You know, like, the benefits, logically, when you think about it, like, there's no non-benefits from healing. Like, there are only benefits that come out of healing. It just, you have to be committed, and you have to stick with it and keep going and not give up on yourself and show up for yourself. And that's really, really hard, especially when you've survived narcissistic abuse, because half the time you want to believe that you can fix the other person. Maybe they're going to change. But at the end of the day, even if that person changes, which they won't, I see people asking if narcissists will change. They will not. But even if somebody does have that weird coming to God moment and they turn their life around, don't you still have to heal from what you went through anyways? So you might as well just get started.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I want to touch on that point that you said, like, narcissists won't change. Yes, agreed. No disagreement there. I want to address this innocuous line that people keep bringing up, which is, once you heal your life, watch everyone else heal around you. That has to be the most asterisked, like, conditional line that I have to point a massive finger at and say, no, like, not everyone. I want to make it very clear. I healed my life and no one changed. Like, I know I've healed my life. I know that I've had, like, a much better life and I'm feeling better, but no one changed. And so I want to make it very, very, very clear that if you go into this journey with the expectation that people will change, you will fail. Like, just please stop. Like, that is not going to work in any spectrum of this way. you and how you show up to people will definitely change,
Hmm.
but the people around you may or may not. And if they're narcissistic, 100% no. Like, just
Exactly.
give up. Like, don't even go there. And I say this with a lot of love because to share a story, so my mother definitely has patterns of narcissistic behavior. And I, for a long time, had a lot of resentment and anger. And that's obviously why I came to you and was like, I need something to get my anger out of me. Oh, look, rage journaling, great. And that was really powerful because my mum thrived on what I call this push-pull relationship of control and also just wanting forgiveness straight away. And until she got that, it was me being given the silent treatment. And I say that very specifically and clearly with that description of the behavior to then flip it around and then be like, okay, and I want to make it very clear what I'm about to say will not be the same for everyone. So take what I say with a grain of salt. My mum on the spectrum of like narcissistic behavior, probably not as bad as a lot of other people. Let's get that out of the way first. I had to work through so much resentment to get to a place of indifference where when I recently had a chat with her again, what I'm about to say, not for everyone, but for me it was important. I actually forgave her for what happened in the past and was just like, look, given everything that you went through, I can understand that it must have been really hard. It was a very tearful chat. And I did forgiveness not for her, but for myself, because I needed to get all that toxicity, all those thoughts and all those feelings out of my system. And that for me was my closure. I had to do it in that way. That's just my style. I know that's just for me. Now with my relationship with my mum, I want to make this very clear again, not the same for everyone. I look at our relationship and go, she's just someone who has adapted to a way of looking after me, which she calls love. I personally don't vibe it. It's not really something for me. I can't turn to her for my emotional needs. I know that she loves me unconditionally. However, being in her presence and physically being around her is not healthy for me. That is acceptance. And that is a much healthier place to be than they're going to change because I changed. No.
Oh, and no, thank you for sharing that. Like, I think that'll help a lot of people because, you can definitely love them from afar, right? But definitely accepting your mother for who she is the healthiest thing that you could possibly do. And just to understand that, like, okay, she has these traits. Um, I'm not vibing with it, and I don't need to subject myself to that. So this is where a boundary has to happen. And that's because you've done your inner work, you've done your healing, and you know, it's not like you went into the healing with forgiving her first, because
No.
that is not how it works. Right? You have to do your inner work first, then you decide if you're going to make the choice to forgive. And forgiveness really is acceptance, in my opinion. It's just like, hey, this is what you did. That was shitty of you. I worked through it. Enjoy your life, right? Because then you're just like releasing all of the emotions and resentment and all the crap that you have, and that's amazing. And it can happen for anyone with like narcissistic parents as well. But you don't have to be in contact with these people who are bad for your mental health. So taking that step back and prioritizing your life, because you understand that you don't exist for her.
No.
Like, nobody is obligated to their parents. Parents make a choice to bring children into the world. A lot of the times they shouldn't have. Because they just pass on more trauma and all that kind of stuff, and they don't do any sort of inner work before making such a big decision and permanent decision. But that's really it. Like, that's when children of these parents have to realize, I don't exist for this person. I'm allowed to be my own individual person, and I'm okay. And I don't have to keep trying to get my mom's approval and
Mm.
waiting for her to change so I can stop resenting her, because that's never going to happen. You're going to be like, you'll die waiting, right? That'll kill you eventually.
Oh yeah.
So, that's doing the inner work is what's going to help you to let go of the resentment and the anger and all the crap. Like, I don't hold any more resentment towards my mother anymore. And she was like the craziest narcissist ever. She passed away last year. I kind of forgave her on her deathbed, but like it was just one of those things where I'm just like, okay, like I'm just totally at peace with who she chose to be throughout her life. And that's not me. I want nothing to do with it. So I'm just releasing that energy and that anger and resentment. And that's that. But other than that, like good riddance.
Yeah, and I actually want to validate you for saying good riddance in that context too, because there is no shame in saying what you just said as well. I think so many of us would get a lot of fear of like, oh, I'm a bad person if I was like, no. That honestly, when you allow yourself to be angry to actually say those things, that is even a first baby step to
Yeah,
healing, is being like, you have every right to swear, scream, shout to the heavens about how much pain you are in, about how much they hurt you and how much they have, really upset you. I think that one of the things that this culture of ours does, and I actually did live on this last week, and that was amazing too, because we were discussing how forgiveness is taught in this sort of like forgive and forget way, like just get over it sort of context. Like, let's just rush to forgiveness. I have never told a single one of my clients to just forgive someone. I'll share the example that I shared in that because I think this is really relevant too. I went to a masterclass with an entrepreneur, and in this Zoom session, he was asking us, like, and this is relevant for those of you who are listening who want to start a business of your own too, because a lot of the healing, I think, sometimes takes getting our power back. And that often means we often self-employ ourselves, because why not? I remember
so
there was,
true.
in this masterclass, I'll never forget it, there was this opportunity by the coach to tell all of the participants, like, what's that one thing that you feel is holding you back from actually starting your life? And he delivered this masterclass in a very, I think, overly simplistic way, but it was still very entertaining and engaging, until one person said, I have to be honest, I'm just at the back end of a narcissistic relationship. They've smear campaigned me. If I start my job right now, if I start this thing that I want to get off the ground, I feel like it will be destroyed because of what my ex has said. And I am so worried about even birthing this. And this coach said, have you tried the forgiveness work yet? As this poor woman was crying in Zoom in front of like 30 other people online about what was going on. And what I want to say is that, like, off the back of what you were just sharing before about forgiveness, you cannot rush that. You have to sit with the pain. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to be angry. But forgiveness is like the final destination. It's like saying, I want to climb to the peak of Mount Everest when you're at the bottom of the ocean floor.
Hmm. Could not agree more. That's awful. Oh my gosh, poor lady. That's so like fucked up of him to say that. Um,
I know.
not okay. Not okay at all. And hopefully she stumbles upon something that shows her that you don't need to forgive in order to start your business. But that's totally a part of it. And I totally was terrified starting this business because what are all the people that were narcissistic in my life going to say about me? Like I was just terrified of like some sort of a smear campaign and like everything, like, horrible things being written about me, but you have to work through that, and that's not going to happen through forgiving those people.
No.
Like you work through it first, you do that inner work, you release those emotions, you process all that shit. And then if you feel called to forgive the people who wronged you, go for it. But you don't have to actually like even do it to their face or anything like that. You just release the emotions and you release them from like any any space that they're taking up in your mind rent free, because you don't need that at all. But you have to do the inner work, and it does not start with forgiveness. And I can't tell you how many like self-development courses I've bought that it literally starts with forgive everybody. And it's just like, all right, I wasted money on this shit.
Yeah, yeah, not wrong. I mean, I'm the same. Like, I have a thing on forgiveness in my courses, but I rarely
Yeah.
use it these days because I'm just like, eh, if if we feel like it, we feel like it. But I think that I often like to let people just sit in the mud and then just like start spooning it out themselves, because that's
Exactly.
them learning to actually coach themselves. And I think that's an important part of the process too. I
Exactly.
will say, like, reflecting on some of the benefits that I've had from this journey, I will say I am a fucking good bad person detector now off the back of my healing journey, especially in dating. I can pick up someone who's emotionally unavailable like that now, and I'm like, yep, goodbye. We're not doing
Amazing.
this anymore. And also because you get so in touch with, like, whenever you have like a minor pang of anxiety, like to those of you out there who find like you get a little bit overwhelmed or anxious in dating, often because the person you're with is probably in trouble for you. Your body's responding to something that's not quite right. So tip number one, the butterflies are bad, not good. Um, which is what you said earlier too. I agree. But beyond that, though, in more health related reasons, like I came to Adriana and I was like, I've got IBS. I've had like, I think I've had narcissistic abuse. How do I work through this? Rage journaling and feeling safe, two powerful things that really help with that. And I'm feeling amazing off the back of that too. Oh, look at this turn into a testimonial.
Amazing.
um, but in all seriousness though, like I am now IBS completely free. My nutrition is like so back on track. My digestion is amazing. I feel great. Um, and I honestly, I'm loving life. Like, honestly, it feels great. And whenever I have, like, it's not to say that I'm like 100% like, perfect every day of my life, but like, I'm more accepting. Like, sometimes I'll be in a funk and I'll be like, okay, here we go. Like, it's just me going through a new phase of growth. But that's the thing, is that I surrendered to it now without feeling the need to hold on to every aspect of my life that's keeping me stuck. So I share this with people, especially as I've like been working on my business, which I love to pieces. It is crazy how magical and how amazing the healing journey is as you do it, because as you do more of it, and I'm sure you found this too when you were building Let's Get Your Shift Together, like it's compounding. Like it just gets better and better and better over time. It won't happen on your time, meaning that it's not going to happen like that, but just watch every other area of your life get better. Watch your friendships get better, because you cast away the people that drain you and you can feel it in your gut. You just choose more things that you enjoy in your work, because you're like, that doesn't stress me out. Let's just not do that. I'm going to work 20 hours, not 40, and I feel great about it. I don't feel guilty. And you just enjoy life more, because you're just like, yep, I know what's toxic and I know what's healthy.
Hmm. Exactly. 100% could not agree with you more.
Mm.
It's that's really, yeah. Thanks for the impromptu testimonial there. I'm so glad that you're feeling better. And
Work with Adriana.
yeah, I have to agree, but no, just kidding. And then people are probably like, she's such a narcissist. But that's what happens when you heal. Like you actually can trust your abilities to help other people or whatever you're good at and whatever it is. So it's like you might as well just start doing it. And it, yeah, I really don't know what else to add. You summed it up like perfectly, that all of it.
Just like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no,
so
look,
true though. Like,
I agree. By the way, for anyone watching, I wasn't paid to say that, by the way, and
yay.
I don't owe Adriana any money other than the gratitude at the bottom of my heart. That's where my gratitude generally goes to. But like, no, like in all seriousness though, like I think more than anything else, it was just really to say that look, I think we're both living examples of like it gets better. Like you may think, oh, I'm in the shitter right now, like it's crap. You've already made step one. Recognize that it's shit. Then do something about it. Don't wait till tomorrow when you might have a better opportunity to do it. Just do it now.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree more. And the thing with healing too that I also want to just emphasize is you don't need to work with somebody. You can do it on your own. You really can. It's just it'll go a lot faster if you work with somebody, but just even being aware of the fact that you have repressed emotions and that you can work through them and do something about it and just sit with how shitty it feels because you have finally acknowledged that, like, okay, this is shit right now. Life is
Mm-hmm.
actual shit in this moment, and just recognizing that, like, okay, maybe it could be not shit, but I have to do something different about it. That's you're already on a healing journey.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's the start of, what we call a spiritual awakening is when you actually take your step back and go, time to unshit my life. Like, if I can go from feeling heartbroken, surrounded by toxic friends, in a bad job, in debt to the Australian government, to being the complete opposite of that, I mean, I don't want to say everyone can do the exact same journey that I did, but I think that out of respect to the healing process, you can heal yourself.
Mhm.
That's the last thing that I'll say on this. But yeah, Adriana, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for
Always
making
fun when we go live together. We're gonna do this more often for sure. Thanks for
Please.
having me.
No, no, no. I honestly, like, it was so much fun. Like, I really enjoyed having this discussion because I feel like this is, a common question I get, like, on my page is like, well, what do you define as healing? And I'm like, it's complicated, but it's also I think it's deeply satisfying the more you do it. And it's not like, I think the way I'd put it is similar to going to the gym in that the minute you start and you keep doing it, you may not see results immediately, but over time, it's going to be really good.
Exactly. Exactly. And, just to piggyback off of that point, you are not going to be a bodybuilder overnight by going to the gym. And
No.
just because you do like a 12-week program with like a personal trainer, does this mean you stop going to the gym after that? No, you've got to keep going. So you have to just keep going, keep doing the work. And even after you're like healed or whatever, like I still do the inner work myself. And I've been doing it for like 2.5 years at this point. So it's one of those things that just becomes incorporated into your lifestyle. But you have to start somewhere and you can't give up on yourself. You can take breaks. If it's too much, you could totally take a break. But what you have to also examine, like, do I just feel safe, unsafe, not keeping going? And then try and figure out what emotions are there all the time, right? It's all about those emotions. So, yeah,
Mm. And I think the very last thing I'll say to anyone who's interested in that is if it doesn't feel good, ask yourself, why am I doing it?
exactly. And not like the inner work because it won't feel good at first, but the stuff that actually doesn't feel good, the patterns in your life, why are you doing those?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Adriana, as always. I'm going to chuck this onto my IGTV for anyone who
Awesome.
wants to take a look at it. And yeah, just to wrap up, for anyone from my side who watches this Amazeballs vid, wants to find you, where can they find you?
Let's get your shift together on Instagram. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Or TikTok, but I'm not really on there that much.
Beautiful. And then for anyone from your side, if anyone wants to look at me, I'm at ken.reed.co and I'm just on Instagram at this time being, having fun and just spouting truth bombs because I feel like there's, like we said today, a lot of clarity around this stuff and I think that it's overly simplified by a lot of people. So yeah,
Hmm.
thank you everyone for joining. This was so much fun. Adriana, I can't wait to do another live with you again because this was awesome and your crowd's amazing. And I love the fact that they're on such a big healing journey with you too.
Awesome. Thanks so much again for having me. And we will definitely do this again, spreading those truth bombs about what the healing journey really is.
I agree. Making it unsexy and unmarketable all the
Exactly.
way.
Exactly. But honest.
True. That's what people buy us for, which is the most
Yeah,
important thing.
exactly. All right. See you later. It was great
See you
chatting with
later,
you.
Adriana. Bye bye.
Bye.